I'm going to break down Jordan Peterson's surprising tips to make chiropractors more successful. I'm Dr. Dan. I'm the chiropractic advocate. I get fired up to help chiropractors understand and better explain the benefits of chiropractic so they can communicate and convert more people into care. So if you're out here, I'm assuming you're watching this as a chiropractor or maybe a chiropractic student. I get pretty fired up about the science and the research of chiropractic. Why? Because I grew up in a medical model. I grew up thinking that chiropractic was about bad backs and bad necks. I got injured. I thought that chiropractic was helping athletes overcome their pain. That's a good and noble thing. But there's so much more to the story, as you know. And so I want you to understand it and explain it better. And so when I look at Jordan Peterson, some of you are already turned off because you don't like Jordan Peterson. Some of you are turned on because you love him. I have studied this guy. I've read his books. I've watched hours and hours and hours of his content. I asked myself, what makes him different? Well, part of it is his depth of understanding. But the other thing that so many people miss is his ability to communicate. Whether it's on the influence of man in society, his opinion and perspective on feminism, or he's teaching at his own event talking about politics, business, marriage, or family. The guy has opinion about a lot, and I really respect him. And so when somebody asked him a question of how can I become a better communicator, I'm gonna tell you right now, this is a message directly to chiropractors. So if you're listening, I'm telling you, let's break down what he said and how pivotal it is for you to really understand this. So first, listen to what Jordan says about what separates the good from the great. I want you to see yourself in this. Can you categorize yourself in this category? Are you what he would describe as one of the top elite in your profession? Check this out.
There isn't anything that you can possibly do that makes you more competent in everything you do than to learn how to communicate. I don't care if you're going to be a carpenter. I mean, being a carpenter, by the way, is very difficult, especially if you're a good carpenter. But if you're good at communicating as a carpenter, you're like 10 times better as a carpenter.
So first off, Jordan has that dialed. If you're going to be great at what you do, separate yourself from anybody else in your industry, you have to be a great communicator. That has proven itself over the history of time in any profession. Now the next thing I'll tell you and I'll remind you of, Emory professor and neuroscientist Gregory Burns had this to say. He said, a person can have the greatest idea in the world, completely different and novel than anybody else, but if that person can't convince enough other people, it doesn't matter. He said this in reference to Steve Jobs, or one of the books that I read was called The Innovation Secrets of Steve Jobs. And he pointed out that you could have the greatest product, service, or offer, but if people can't understand you and you can't convince them, you can't communicate, you're dead in the water. And in this book, it was referenced how great of a communicator Steve Jobs was. Yes, he built an amazing device using great technology, innovated the world, arguably the greatest company of all time, but he did it on the back of his ability to communicate. So why would that be different for you? It isn't. And here's the deal. The bigger the mission, the bigger your purpose, the more important it is to be able to communicate. And you're like me. Listen, when you have a big message, when you have something that could help so many people called chiropractic and they don't know it and there's already low trust in the industry, we've got to get better. And we can get better no matter where you're at. Again, I go back to my own story. A shy, introverted middle child of 8 kids who had no business communicating and speaking from a stage, here I am. Why? Because I got convicted. And so Jordan breaks this down when a kid asks him, how did you become such a great communicator and how can I emulate you? Jordan so eloquently broke down and said, the first thing, surprisingly, to become a better communicator, to better articulate your product, service, or offer is this.
Well, there's a couple of things. It helps to read a lot. It really helps to write. So if you want to make yourself articulate, which is a very good idea, then not only should you read, but you should write down what you think.
What's interesting about Jordan saying that is, I actually thought I was a weird one, always wanting to read things. I always wanted to, even back in my early days in chiropractic college, like I would read stuff, take down notes, and go find that book or go find that article or go listen to that CD or that tape. Yes, you heard me right, CD or audio tape. Some of you don't know what that is, you may have to Google that. But I would be so interested in hearing it for myself and rehearing it or rereading it. And although I wasn't great at writing until the last 5 years, I was always diving into more data, more information, more of the studies. This is why I've got an affinity for research and evidence. But the other thing that I always do when I would read is that I would always look up the opposing view. I don't know why. I think for part of me is I would never want to get stumped. If I was so bold to say something and I didn't know what the opposing viewpoint is, I would feel too vulnerable. So I want to know what the opposing argument was, and I could decide exactly why I'm so strongly believe the way I do. I don't get convicted about something unless I understand it, and it turns out reading is so critical. So I would just recommend not only read what you believe in, know it deeply, but also know what the opposing viewpoint is. The second thing that Jordan describes so well, and this one you can take to the bank. I love this one.
You have to know way more than you're talking about, so this is often difficult for beginning lecturers at university because they'll do a lecture on a topic, but they only know as much as they're saying in the lecture. And they get kind of stuck to their notes because of it. But you want to know 10 times as much as you are saying in the lecture, and then you can specify a stepping path through it.
Know what you have and what you do so deeply that people feel you. I get so many chiropractors that come to me and they want the one-liner. They want the one rebuttal. They want the one script. And then I go through with them. 93% of your communication is nonverbal. And you're looking for the right script, the right words? Listen, I'm here to tell you, words are important, but your tone, your energy, your body language is so much more important. So how do you get it? You know something so deep, you're convicted of it. How do you do that? You know your craft. You know your topic 10 times deeper than anything you would be expected to speak on. When you speak about it, they feel it. They can feel you more than they hear you. The question is, do you know your content deep enough that they feel like they can trust you? And the third thing that Jordan reminds us of to be a great communicator?
Practice.
Practice makes perfect, but not just practice, right? It's perfect practice makes perfect. Deliberate hours spent communicating to other humans, what I call hand-to-hand combat. It can get dirty sometimes, and that's okay. You learn a lot. You win some, you lose some, and we learn the most from our losses. The question is, will you change? Too many people, they spend 1 year over and over and over again, and by 20 years in, they think they have 20 years experience, but really they have 1 year experience done 20 years because they never changed. They never got insight. They never learned. They never went through trial and error, and they never pivoted, altered, or transformed their message for them to get better results. Don't make that be you. Learn from a master. Jordan Peterson is a master, and the other thing about masters is that they have low ego. They don't even consider themselves masters because they're always a student of the game. They're humble. And so you gotta ask yourself, are you humble? Are you willing to learn? And are you willing to get coached? Build the income and the impact of your dreams. It's there for you, but you gotta put in the work. If you need help, click the link below. I'll find out where you're at, where you're headed, and if we can come alongside and help you get to where you need to get. I'm Dr. Dan. I'm the Chiropractic Advocate, and I'm out.